Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 144 of Petey's Awesome Guest Panel. Now, before I introduce tonight's special, iconic, legendary, veteran voice actor here this evening, I want to introduce tonight's co-host for this evening, Metal Gear fan and video game enthusiast, Mr. Christopher Petey.
Hey, yo.
It's always good to see you, buddy.
Good to be here always.
Absolutely. And before I introduce this legendary voice actor, I just want to say a couple of things. First off, he is not only a veteran voice actor, but he's also a writer, producer, and director, star of popular TV shows such as Mask and the Tenchi series, which I love. And of course, one of my favorite video games of all times, Metal Gear Solid, as Psycho Mantis. My guest at this time is Psycho Mantis himself, Mr. Doug Stone. Mr. Stone, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I was waiting for episode 144 before I was going to be on the show. I wanted to make sure you guys had it down. So I figure 143 episodes, they must know what they're doing. Put me in for 144.
Wait, did I say 144? I meant 114. Excuse me.
Oh, I think you said 144. I may have missed it.
My mistake. But yeah.
In that case, I'll see you in 30 episodes.
Before we dive into the questions, Mr. Stone, there's something that I feel like has to be discussed importantly. So go ahead, you discuss right now.
Thank you. Well, aside from working in the voiceover industry, my feeling is I feel so fortunate to have had a career like I've had that you want to give back. I think it's important to give back. In my case, I'm a big animal lover. I have one hand down here because I've got my 19-year-old cat rubbing her face against my hand as I speak. I volunteer and sit on the board of a no-kill nonprofit cat shelter here in Los Angeles that's dedicated to saving the feral cats in the streets and humanely reducing the population. By humanely, I mean rather than euthanizing a healthy cat, which is what some city shelters and even private shelters will do, we never do that. We give any healthy cat, we don't care if they have one eye, 3 legs, whatever, we give them a chance at life. And what we do to reduce the population, rather than euthanization, is something called trap, neuter, return, where we go out and work with people who are feeding colonies of cats. We trap them, we get them neutered, we get them spayed so they can't keep having babies. Some will come into our Kitty Bungalow Charm School for Wayward Cats and become students, hopefully graduating / getting adopted. Others may go into our working cat program where they work at a brewery and scare away the mice. Some are they're so Joe Pesci tough that they have to go back to the colony because they're just feral and they'll rip your face off. You know, they're old and they're tough. So that's fine. They go back to their colony. Somebody's in place to feed them, but they don't keep having babies. So in lieu of that, part of what I do sitting on the board is do fundraisers. And these are voiceover fundraisers. So they're a lot of fun for fans. It's called Make Their Voices Heard. And I have this year over 220 items I've gathered. By items, I mean both prints, everything autographed, prints, posters. There's also voiceover classes available one-on-one with an experienced voiceover teacher. You can, for some of them, get voiceover messages from Psycho Mantis or Matt Tracker. You can request a 20 to 30-second message from them for your telephone, for somebody's birthday, whatever you like. And bid on that. So it's going to go into Gala Bid on October 16th. It'll run from October 16th to October 30th. And people will do a silent bid on the items, as I said, the 220 items, all to benefit Kitty Bungalow. If they want to see ahead of time what's available, if you log on and just do a search for Kitty Bungalow Charm School, and then you'll see our site, and it'll have events. And under events is the Voices Heard. I've got it up on the screen now. Just to give you a quick idea, Leah Sargent, Michael Bell has stuff from Transformers, Rugrats, Michael McConaughey, Michelle Ruff, Neil Ross, things from G.I. Joe, Patrick Seitz. These are all very well-known people who are participating. Richard Epcar's in, who I've known for ages, Sandy Fox and Lex Lang, Steve Bloom. On and on the list goes. I could list them all, but there's about 50 or 60 voiceover people and artists. We also have comic books and other art pieces that have to do with animation and games and whatnot that are available. And certainly prints of Psycho Mantis autographed, prints of Matt Tracker and the other characters that I voiced in that series, and a bunch of other characters that I did are also available. For me, let me find who I've got. I've got Psycho, Matt Tracker, or the masked characters, Fugaku from Naruto, Gilbert from Fire Emblem, Shingen Kishitani, I'm not going to pronounce it right, from Durarara, Speed the Turtle from Swan Princess, and Valkenhayn R. Helsing from Blaze Blue. And I apologize to fans if I've mispronounced any of the names. Those are all prints that are available, plus voiceover stuff. So anyway, thank you for letting me talk about that a little bit, but that's really something I'm very passionate about. And obviously, these wonderful actors who are also animal lovers, who adopt cats and dogs and, you know, any other critters, are sympathetic enough and compassionate enough where they participate every year. And as I say, it launches on October 16th. That's when the Galabid site will come live, but you can see what we've got by going to the Kitty Bungalow site and get an idea of anticipation of what's going to be available.
That's a beautiful cause, sir. And when I had Burt Ward on my show from the 1966 Batman, he also had a very similar like shelter, like an animal like shelter, and very advocate for cats and dogs.
Good for him.
Yeah, and much like what you were promoting also with the cause, like I did the same thing with Burt Ward, and you mentioned Michael Bell. I had him on the show years ago. He's a wonderful man,
and a huge animal advocate. That's how we met at a convention. We got talking about animals and then just bonded immediately. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, and I also, you mentioned like I also want to apologize to you right now for saying if I said 144 in the episode, I apologize. It's 114. My mistake. I got jitters for introducing a legendary name like Mr. Stone.
Oh yeah, not legendary except in my mind.
The first question I have for you, and this could be a typical cliche question, that is, how and when did you get your first big break and/or start into voice acting? Take us there.
Well, I'm from Canada originally. I was in Toronto and never thinking I could make a living as an actor, period. So I was just doing amateur theater. But I started, not to get it too long a story, I started to do a little bit of voiceover for commercials on the side. And with the money that was bringing in, I thought, you know, maybe I could quit my day gig and actually go into acting full time, because I've got a little bit of money I'm going to get from acting and this supplement from voiceover, which I thought would just be a supplement doing commercials. So that's what I did. And I was fortunate enough, I was doing on-camera work up there as well as theater. I did an on-camera thing, a half-hour kind of horror thing, and I had the lead. And the cinematographer said, "Who's your agent?" I wasn't with a big agent. He said, "You should be with this agency. You're a very good actor. Tell him I sent you." And he was a senior guy in the industry. And on his word, they signed me. I went, amazing. I'm with a big agency. Out of the blue, within 6 months, there was a conglomerate of Canada, France, and the US casting for a cartoon series to be recorded with Canadian ACTRA, that's the union up there, actors, but to be recorded in LA, where I'd been many times, but didn't live. Only 2 agents, I think, in Canada got the auditions, and one was the new agent that I had just signed with. And I was one of the few actors they had who had VO experience. So I auditioned, and they were very interested in me for the lead in this cartoon series. But they wanted me to be able to do other characters. And I ended up getting 3 initially and flew down here in January of 1985 to work on Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command. Ended up with 8 characters. So that's what brought me to LA and was my big voiceover break. Because again, in Canada, the industry didn't, it does now, but at that time there was no cartoon industry really, and they weren't dubbing or doing anime. It was just really commercials that you could make money at. And I was doing characters in commercials, but they were commercials for, you know, clothing stores and et cetera, 30-second spots. So Mask was the big break that got me here. I was going to go back to Canada after I finished it, take the money and run, because I didn't think I could make it in LA. This is where all the big stars are. But I was encouraged by the studio owner and by the producer, one of the producers of the series said, "Hey, you know, you're good enough to work in LA. Really? You think so? That I'm talented enough where I could stay, and you think I could make a living here? Because the opportunities in LA, of course, are thousandfold more than were available to me in '85 in Toronto." They said, yeah, we think so. So I took a chance, invested the money that I made on the cartoon series in myself, because it takes a while to get going, obviously. I didn't get work right away, and it fortunately worked out. So here I am, that's what, 38 years ago, in LA, and still working at this, not as much as I used to. I don't direct, I don't produce, I don't write anymore. I relax a lot more, but I still work as an actor. Do a couple of jobs a month, 3-4 jobs a month, which is great, and still love it. And yeah, just really fortunate to still be working.
That's incredible, sir. And I'm so glad you're still working, because you're definitely one of the best. I mean, I loved your work in Metal Gear and Naruto and Tenchi. In fact, I grew up watching Tenchi into Tokyo when Toonami was running the shows, like when they run Gundam Wings and all that. I was a huge fan of that block.
Well, I was, yeah, directing. I did a lot of mainly directing on Tenchi, a few scripts maybe, but primarily directing and some casting and that was a fun. I liked Tenchi. I mean, I won't lie. I'm not going to BS you and say, oh, I love that show and I love this show, because some I don't even remember, to be honest. It's been a long time, but I liked Tenchi. It was fun. I liked directing it. I thought it was goofy and a fun show, and I'm surprised that some of the younger people don't know of it, and I want to turn them on to it and say, you should go back. That's one of the ones that's worth, I think, watching. It made me laugh, and I'm a tough laugh, because I used to do comedy as well on stage. So usually I just analyze comedy. I don't laugh at it. But Tenchi was cool.
It was. Chris, your question, buddy?
Any methods of preparation you do before a voiceover role?
It really depends on the role and how challenging it's going to be. I mean, sometimes I audition. At this point in my career, I'm very often just cast in things. So I don't even see the script beforehand. I just am told you're playing Bob, in a series. So I don't see it. I don't see the sides and everything else until I'm literally in the studio. So there is no chance to do a preparation as to getting familiar with the character. You have to do that within a couple of minutes with just the director telling you what is expected of you. You try out a couple of voices once you've seen the animation. Do you like this? Do you want this? Do you want him old? Do you want him very old? Or do you want him just a little bit old? Is he big old? Is he small and frail old? If it was an older character. And just experiment with stuff, then he'll help you nail it, and then off to the races you go. So it's often very quick. If you're doing looping, which I've done a lot of TV shows and films, like I had a group that did all the Hercules and Xena TV shows in the 90s. Oh, yeah. Nobody speaks on TV shows, dramas, other than the principals. So in Hercules and Xena, my group of actors was every monster, every villager, every minor character they met was us voicing them.
Oh, okay.
Those shows, you're doing a lot of yelling and screaming and fighting. So you do physical preparation. You're drinking tea, you're having honey, you're preserving your voice. You bring your throat spray with you. You drink a lot of water. You make sure your vocal placement isn't in your throat, but it's in your diaphragm. There's a lot of things you have to do. It's almost like singing on Broadway or something. That's really demanding physically.
Well, you mentioned Xena and Hercules too, that you were on them. I wanted to get your memories on working on the Xena and Hercules series and working with Kevin Sorbo and Lucy Lawless.
Well, I got to meet Lucy. They were filming in New Zealand. We were doing our voice work here in LA. That was part of the reason too, was because when they had actors there, they had New Zealand accents, often the ones who had 1 or 2 lines, and we'd have to replace them. But again, also doing all the other characters. Kevin was kind enough to autograph something for me, which says, hey, Doug, loop this. There's just a picture of him, Kevin Sorbo, so he's making this little joke. Lucy Lawless, I did get to meet a few times, and a lovely, lovely person. Everybody, actually all of them, it was that series, often on a TV show, sometimes the stars are maybe not easy to get along with or have huge egos, and you hear all these stories from people on the shows going, oh, what a nightmare. They want this, they demand that, they want all the best lines. Everybody on Herc and Xena, all that I heard from New Zealand was positive stuff, which was great. That they were both really nice to work with and their egos didn't get away from them, etc. When I met Miss Lawless, she was just as gracious and sweet as could be. Really nice. All the cast members that did come over to LA that I met at like Christmas parties and stuff, they'd host a party for all of us. If they were in town, they would host it just to be nice. They were all really nice. So that was a fun show. demanding on the throat, but a lot of fun to work on. And I wanted some awards for it for casting. They used to have Golden Reel Awards for voice casting for looping for TV shows and films, and I was able to win a couple for that and one or two other little things. So I have nice memories all the way across the board.
That's cool. And I wanted to ask you this as an actor, though, and I ask all my actor and actresses guest stars this question. That's the raw emotion question, which you are very good in selling raw emotion, especially as Psycho Mantis. That was incredible acting. Like I said, you deserve an Oscar and an Emmy for that, because that was just like the way Psycho Mantis felt like when he was screaming. I felt that. Like, it was incredible. And the question I was going to ask, I was going to put you in a scenario right here. Like, if you were in a scenario where you and a co-star have to get into, like, there's a scene that requires you and your co-star to get into this heated argument, and your co-star comes up to you and says, Mr. Stone, and they say that because they have so much respect for you. They say, Mr. Stone, this scene requires us to get into a heated altercation. I know it may sound weird, but I had an idea that we can possibly use that to, like, blur the lines between reality, fiction, and nonfiction, where, like, you lambast me and lay into me so hard that you can make me cry in frustration, real tears, fake reasoning. If you were approached with this type of method, what would you say to that said co-star, and what would your reaction be?
Well, ordinarily, the only time that you're working with the other actors is original animation. Psycho recorded by himself and the director. So and a lot of dubbing work, you're in there by yourself these days. But I have done original animation in some games where I was with the other actor in the room. To me, because I have a theater background, it's the same as theater. At my acting training, and I didn't just do voiceover. I studied a little bit of Stanislavski. I studied at Second City improvisation because I used to make my living doing that. I taught myself, I won't do it now, but I had taught myself to cry on cue. I can do a lot of things on cue in studio when they're paying me. If they say your character's going to cry, I say, give me 30 seconds. And I read the lines over and I well up the emotions. I almost started to feel it coming just from saying that. And I can sob for you on cue. So what I'm used to with the other actor is, my assumption is that if we're going to have an argument, that they have the same kind of training and that we don't need to talk about it much, that we're just both going to go for it. But that is absolutely going to be my goal, is to mess him up. If we're having a real fight, my character, I mean, is having a real fight with your character, I'm going to mess you up, dude, because I want to win, right? I mean, I'm not Doug. I'm not peaceful cat guy Doug. I am whoever, Fred the killer, or whoever I am in this film, and you are, Bob the policeman. Bob's gonna die. That's it, dude. Sorry. End of you. Boom. So I'm already ready to be merciless. I don't need to talk to the other actor to do it. But if the other actor is younger and unsure or whatever, and needs some support and feels like he wants to talk to me, or she wants to talk to me first to say, I'm a little bit nervous about that. You've been in the business longer. You won't mind if I yell at you, or, whatever. I'm happy. I would just tell them, go for it. Rip my face off. Not, stand at your microphone, but rip my face off. Turn me into whoever. What I do is turn the other person into whoever I hate. Use actors who sense memory. So you go back to people or situations where you were so angry you could have ripped somebody's head off. We've all had those in life. And that's what I go back to in those situations is, I'm just going to, as far as I'm concerned, you are that person. You are that situation, and I'm going to rip your head off. And I would encourage the other actor, hate me. Absolutely hate me for the next 20 minutes. It's cool. We'll hug it out after, but go for it. Just go for it. Do not hold back.
Very, very method actor-like, right?
I guess it's partially method. I'm not a method actor per se, but I do believe in sense memory. I do believe in aspects that it does touch upon. I, again, only took some Stanislavski classes. I didn't immerse myself in the method, but I really do believe that the way you make a character live is to find you have to use your emotions. Otherwise you're faking it.
Yeah.
I'm really mad at you. But I wasn't mad at you when I said that. I don't think that sounded real at all to me, to my ears. Not as well as it could sound if I worked myself up to where I was really mad at you, and started to get myself going. Then I'm going to believe it. You're going to believe it. And hopefully the fans watching are going to believe it. But I don't think you can fake that stuff, and I don't think you should fake it. I think you do have to go in, and if you love that character, you love them, you adore them. Think of the people you loved in your life and put that face on them. So I guess it is kind of method, but it's acting. No different from theater than it is in voiceover. Voiceover isn't just funny voices. There are people who can just do funny voices, hey, hey, and they can do crazy wild cartoons, maybe, because it's exaggerated reality, but they can't then turn around like I do a lot of dubbing of live action films into English that are dramas for Netflix. The past few years, I've probably done about 50 or 60 live action drama. You have to act. You're doing a film. You can't overact and you can't be cartoony. So I believe they mesh. I like to approach them both the same way. Just that when you're doing anime or a game or whatever, it's reality turned up just a little bit. Because usually more is at stake. You know, you've got to get the scroll back or the monster will win. So it's a dire situation. So it's kind of turned up a little bit, but it's got to come from a real place to be authentic and to my mind, to make the fan get engaged and go, oh, what's going to happen here? If I'm not real, that doesn't help draw them in.
I understand, and I agree with that. It definitely turned in the dial from 10 to 11.
Yeah, yeah.
You
you gotta Christopher Guest it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the 11. Yeah.
And speaking of Chris, next question.
I don't know Christopher Guest, but I know his brother. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All right. And so, anyway, you also worked on the Naruto series, another one of the animes I enjoy. What were some of your memories on Naruto as Fugaku Uchiha and Tiyaki Uchiha?
Well, I don't have a lot. I mean, I remember specific sessions. It's been going for so long that it's almost more relationship based for me, in that I've worked with some of the people in the studio on that series for so many years that it's just almost like old home week. When I go into work, they go, oh, hi, Dave. Hi, so hi. It's all old home week. But there's nothing. I know that series is super special to fans. Working on it, it's really just getting the feel of the series, which you're looking for the director to help you establish as to the tone of the series. That's one that is kind of, even though it's fictional, obviously, and has some sort of magical aspects, they like to play it kind of more real. And the relationships and the emotions more real. So that, that dad who's not a very nice guy, I don't admire him on a personal level, but I'm willing to play obviously bad guys like Psycho or a mean dad who's not as kind as he should be to his sons, even though I'm not sympathetic to him. I have to immerse myself in him and believe he's right while I'm playing him. I have to be on his side to play him properly. So that's, for me, that's sort of where the challenge comes in him. The other characters were just more guest characters, or I took over for Mike McConaughey on one of the Sugakis, or whatever they're called, and I remember playing a scroll carrying a turtle or tortoise or something else. It's hard to remember all the other characters on there, but for the dad, I just have to kind of take the challenge of saying, okay, I'm not going to like this guy, I know, because he's mean to his kids, but I've got to be the stern dad while I play him. Oh. And it's just like everybody else, we're all amazed that it's still so, nobody knew it would have the legs that it has, how popular it is. It's incredible.
Definitely one of the top animes going.
And I'll say this, it was also a missed opportunity on Konami's part that they didn't bring you back for the role of Psycho Mantis' father. Because, yeah, he appeared in Metal Gear Solid 5 as a kid.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we didn't get to actually maybe elaborate on his backstory a bit more.
I would have loved to have done it. I mean, it's just weird the way these things, like Matt Tracker in the Mask series, I don't know if you know that they keep trying to sort of revamp it. It got purchased and they tried to attach it to G.I. Joe, and they keep changing it. For a while, they made Matt Tracker a young African-American guy of about 22 years of age. That didn't fly. They keep trying all these different things, and the fans and self wonder, why don't you just go back to the original? So maybe you don't feature Psycho Mantis in such a huge way, but Psycho's there to introduce his child or his son or whatever else, so that there is that connection, excuse me, for the fans. And no different for Mask. If they do revamp Mask, as they keep talking about potentially doing, and potentially making a film of it or whatever, why not have, excuse me,
No worries, sir.
been talking a lot today. Why not have the older characters appear, just introduce it? Like if they need a younger voice for the crime fighters, have the remaining cast introduce them in the series. But so I feel that way for Psycho and for everything else. The through line is really important for fans. I think they like that through line and that connection. But that's that's up to the producers.
I see. And before I ask the next question, Mr. Stone, I just want to bring in another co-host that's supposed to be joining us right now. His name is Andy. He's a friend of Chris and I's, and he's a big Metal Gear Solid fan. So this is Andy. We're gonna bring him in right now. Before I ask the next question, join him right now. I get the next question lined up. But the next question I had for you. Oh, here he is.
Hi, Andy. I knew you were going to join us because I can read your mind.
Yes. He can read your mind.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
Look, Andy's controller is jumping. Sorry, Andy, I'll stop.
That was awesome. When you did that, that was awesome. Andy, meet Psycho Mantis himself, Doug Stone.
Hey, what is going on? Howdy.
See you join us, man.
Well, what'd I miss?
No, we're not gonna ask the next question, which is Mr. Stone, I'm a huge Power Ranger fan, and you've done voiceover work for Power Rangers. I want to get your memories on working on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy as Skeletron.
Oh, it's so hard to get specific. Again, it's like 41 years and thousands of projects. So I can give you a sort of a general. At that point in my career, I had been working at Saban occasionally as an independent contractor. I directed their very first original animation series, Little Mouse in the Prairie, and did some dubbing work there. So I had associations with them. They, in fact, wrote the music for Mask because they were first a music company. So that was it started to get directed by the late Scott Page. And I wasn't doing as, Scott unfortunately has passed. I wasn't doing as much dubbing in anime at the time because I was so busy in Looping World, Hercules and Xena and other TV shows. But Scott called me in and I thought, oh, well, it'll be fun. Working with Scott. So I went into work on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and was guesting on as different monsters, both on, I guess, that film and on the TV show, et cetera, et cetera. And what was funny about it, and I'm not sure which voice that guy had, but I was starting to do impressions at that time. I was working up some vocal impressions because I'd gotten a job. Joe Pesci, the actor, doesn't like coming in for looping sessions when he does films. So if a line's missed because a helicopter went over or whatever, he won't come in. So they got to get a voice replacement, somebody who sounds like Joe Pesci who'll come in and do it. So I was starting to work up different vocal impressions. So I'm fooling around with Scott, and I'm not sure if this is that Skeletor did this, but I had been doing a Sean Connery lately. We've been joking about Sean Connery, who's now passed as well. And I started to say, oh, how about a monster that sounds like this? I will get you, Power Rangers. You're doomed. And he said, yeah, do that. And I said, Scott, we'll get in trouble. We can't really do that. I mean, they'll get mad at you when you take this in, to the producers. And it sounds like Sean Connery. He said, no, do it. You wouldn't believe these guys. They like wacky stuff. So I'm not sure if that was Skeletor or Eye Guy or whichever the monsters I did. But if you listen back, one of them sounds somewhat like Sean Connery. And he's fighting against the Power Rangers.
Incredible.
Not sure if that was Skeletor or not. But anyway, Scott and I had a lot of fun in those sessions. I don't remember that specific one, but I just remember generally him and I, having a lot of laughs, just coming up with funny voices for the monsters.
Incredible. Just incredible. And speaking of incredible, like we're going to talk about your next project. Chris, take it away, buddy.
So yeah, although I never played any of the Resident Evil games, I've heard very good things, and I guess it was just a missed opportunity from my childhood to ever actually experience them. But what are your memories working on Resident Evil: Infinite Darkness as Wilson?
Um, well, that one was a little different than usual in that it was dubbed. But what they had done, which was unusual, was they'd gotten real actors to act it out, and then animated to that. I don't know if they pixelated. I don't know the technical aspects of it, but then they made it look like a cartoon. So the mouth movements were very articulated. A cartoon might just be blah 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 boom blah da 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 boom, but Resident Evil, you had very articulated mouth movements. So it was like working on a live action, which for live action dubbing, if you're doing vocal replacement for someone in a live action film, you obviously have to be right on the money for the audience not to know. It's surprising how many films and TV shows that you might be watching where you're not hearing the original actor for certain lines. As I say, you might be hearing me do a Joe Pesci line or somebody voice match someone else. But anyway, Resident Evil took a long time. We had to work very slowly because it had to be so exacting to get the mouth movements right on the money, because it had been originally live action actors that they then turned into animated actors in the Resident Evil. So
Right, so they had to sync it up and make sure it was all like fluid and look right and look so robotic and everything like that.
Yeah, well, the whole idea, and when I directed dubbing, my whole and wrote adaptation scripts, you never want to pull the viewer out of the show. And if if the closer you can get to the mouth movements, the more accurate, the more easier it is for the fan to fall into the story and not be jerked by going, what? Why was that still moving after the voice? Vice versa, right?
It looks like Alien. I was like, what the fuck? Like, hold on.
Yeah. That's not,
I get that.
now suddenly I'm looking at that and I'm not following the story anymore because I'm taken away.
Yeah, so like I guess like a good example is like recently I saw the new Saw 10 movie and I'm like really into it. But as you're watching it, it's like there's a torture scene, right? And so yeah, he has to. This is like thief, right? So he steals stuff. So the trap revolved around his fingers, and so not to get too like graphic or anything, it was crazy because as you're watching it, he misses a timeline for one of the events, and so it pulls his finger back. But as you're watching it, you see the camera turn as it like goes, and you're like, "Oh, dude, I felt that. That was wild." But it puts you into like perspective as you're saying, because if it was off and everything noise is off, now you're just like, "Oh, that was awkward," as you're saying.
Yeah, and you're not pulled into it anymore. You've lost. You gotta fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
the
just like
whole
lost
idea,
connection. It's like kind of like storytelling too. Like if you notice something's off or it doesn't catch on, right? It's like, oh, there's like a dead end. There's a loose end. That doesn't make sense. Oh, here's a plot hole. Like, right? It just all goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, exactly. So the best entertainment, of course, has a story that flows and that never pulls you out or doesn't bring in something out of the left field where you go, oh, come on, that what shouldn't be, da, 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 da. Why did that appear out of there? Whatever. But no different for the lip sync, as accurate as you can get it. Again, I think that it makes the viewer more comfortable. The casting is important, the performance is important, but the technical aspect's important too, that you get the lip sync as close as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's what's awesome.
The question I had for you, Mr. Stone, too, another great.
Although before we actually go on to this question, can I just say, Andy, kudos to you for the background you put up for yourself. Because if we all look carefully, we definitely recognize where it comes from.
Yeah, definitely. Big fan, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I tell you, since a kid, my grandfather put me on MGS, and good, my buddy Patty over here, we work in the Army together. Fucking inspiration right there. I don't know, you could tell. But yeah, he put me on it. I thank Patty. Thank you for having me and everything like that. Have a conversation with you too, Doug Stone. I'm a fangirl or anything like that, but it's really awesome. It's an honor. It's an honor.
Yeah.
You'll have to actually probably show me how to do that someday, because it's good to actually have some flavor to the backgrounds for like.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe next time. Maybe tomorrow at work. after whatever they have us do. I got you. No worries.
Yeah. The question I had for you, Mr. Stone, was you worked on Kiki's delivery service, which was, I believe, also the final role of the late great Phil Hartman. I want to get your memories working on Kiki's delivery service.
I didn't know Phil Hartman was in that one. There's a few versions of Kiki. I was in one that was directed by Greg. I've lost
Greg,
his.
is it Greg Eagle or no?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, he won't see this, I guess, but I've lost his name. But I didn't know that Phil Hartman was in it. I did meet Phil Hartman near the beginning of his career on Dennis the Menace, an original animation series. I was actually supposed to play Mr. Wilson and Dennis's dad after the Mask series, but then Phil Hartman showed up, and so much for me. But they were kind enough to let me guest on it a few times. Sorry, I don't know why the air quality here in LA, man, today is bad.
No worries. And I'm gonna say, Mr. Stone too, because I'll actually be in California next year. I'm actually visiting. I'm going to Pasadena for a Power Ranger convention. I just, what's California like?
Oh my goodness. Well, it depends. It's a huge state, so depends where you are. Pasadena is up in the San Fernando Valley at the east end. So it's rolling hills and very suburban. It's not really the LA that you may have pictured of studios and big buildings and excitement and fancy restaurants. Pasadena's more suburban. But it's a very short drive down south to Los Angeles proper. But LA is like a bunch of tiny cities all connected together.
Yeah.
It's a lot of space. But if you're looking for, there's a lot of tours of studios you can take. I would sign up ahead of time if I were you.
Okay.
But there's studio tours you can take and whatever. And if it's your first time in LA, even though that maybe sounds corny, I think it's kind of fun for people. I was working I have done voice work at places like Sony and Warner Brothers and whatever. I'd see the little trams go by with the tourists in them and stuff, and they look like they're having a lot of fun. And once in a while, you will see a TV or film star who's on the lot walking by, and maybe you're on your tram and you go, "Oh my God, that's so and so from a TV show I like." So I think it's a fun thing for tourists to do. So there's tons to see, tons of things to do and see, but not in Pasadena so much. Convention will be there, but you want to come down over the hill, out of the San Fernando Valley into LA to have fun and tour and see things.
Okay.
Other than studios, some of the studios are in the valley, but just to hang, this would be more the area that I'm living in. I used to live in the San Fernando Valley, but I now live kind of in the hub of where things are happening. Because I'm a happening guy,
That you are, sir. Andy, you had a question. I believe it was your second question.
I mean, like, honestly, I know you've been to California and everything like that. That's awesome. I know you go out and everything like that. Like, I guess what is probably like the best part of California you really have. Because I've been to like Montebello, I've been to Whittier, I've been to Los Angeles, Sunset. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't traveled. I traveled years ago down the coast of California. My family and some family members drove from Vancouver, Canada, all the way down the coast in kind of a family trip and saw all the different things. So I don't know. I'm a big, maybe it's coming from Canada, but seeing the ocean stuff really gets me because we didn't get that where I was living. There was some lakes, but not like, oh man, warm water, ocean, sun, surf. Surfers, so to me, that's a big turn on to see that.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I mean, cause like I've been to Santa Monica. You've been on the Venice Boardwalk. Oh my God.
Sure.
Like, I mean, you come across a whole selection of people, but also like artists. Like I remember going down, I used to see it was like a whole mannequin that was welded together, but it was Predator. And you could move it completely in different ways and everything else. But it was just like beautiful. Not just that, like you'd see some of the street art. You saw people like drawing all sorts of crazy stuff on the ground. saw one.
I haven't been down that area as much. I think because I did it a lot when I first moved here. I haven't been down
Okay.
there as much, but yeah, it's a fun area to walk. As you say, there'll be guys lifting weights who've got muscles
yeah.
here, and then a street artist here, and somebody else playing 40
Oh yeah.
instruments at one time, and all this stuff that goes on down there. That's just kind of like a circus.
Oh
in a
yeah,
way.
exactly. And then
But
like not just that, you go down to like the Santa Monica Pier. You
Mhm.
can you don't want to do anything along walking. You take the the Ferris wheel they got the
sure.
the roller coaster. I mean, it's like a big old fair. That's all I
Yeah,
love
and
about
sometimes they even have little concerts there. There's a on the pier, near the pier, there's a little venue there where I've seen a few live artists in years past
it.
playing music down there. So it's a fun area, yeah, and you grab an ice cream here and food there. So yeah, the LA, if you get to the right spots, there's a lot
Oh,
of things to do.
oh,
Downtown venues is where there's a lot of big concerts and the hockey arena and sports arenas and everything else. Where I live, I'm near something called the Grove. The
oh
Grove
wow.
is an outdoor shopping market that has a tram that actually, like a streetcar, that actually travels through it that the kids like to ride. And it's
Oh,
all outdoors with stores. So you're walking outside.
wow.
And they put up like a 500-foot Christmas tree at Christmas. Actually, today, Taylor Swift is over there. She's promoting a tour. So you don't want to be driving in my neighborhood right today because apparently they're closed off part of the street
Wow.
because Taylor Swift's there. So events happen there too. And stars will do events there or whatever. So I'm in a fun area and there's a lot of great restaurants around here and the La Brea tar pits are very close to me, et cetera, et cetera. So but you got to have money to be in LA. You don't want to be poor in LA like anywhere else. You don't
Ah,
want to be living on the street poor. But if
oh,
you've got money to spend, and you've come down to see things, you won't run out of things to see or do.
no, no doubt about it. I mean,
Yeah.
Elephant View, the observatory. You can also go down to Hollywood Boulevard and just walk the stars and take pictures of randos.
Sure.
Hit the outlet malls.
Just keep your hand on your wallet when you're down on Hollywood
Oh,
Boulevard.
no doubt about it,
Um,
sir.
Doug, I had a question too, related to your appearance in the 2002 Lilo and Stitch movie as Ensign Gecko. Memories of shooting Lilo and Stitch, and this, of course, this is a Disney project.
Well, that was a lucky break. Again, looping. Okay, so I'm running a loop group and we're doing TV shows and films. And one of the actresses I hired, who turned out to be a Disney employee, and she called me up and said, there was a film here called Lilo and Stitch. It's not completed yet. They've got half the animation done and the rest is just drawings. And they want to do a looping session. It won't be for the film that is released. They just want to get voices on to see what it looks like and how it flows. Being Disney, they had the money to do it. So they brought us in on union contracts and we looped the movie. We did all the voices of every character other than the leads, including Ensign Gecko. And I thought, well, that was a great payday, but of course, it'll never make it to the screen because when they go to do that, they're going to bring in a whole different group of higher ups. It's very political, this kind of work, and there'll be a different group of actors doing it. What happened was, it was so lucky, the producers were listening to it and watching the animation, and they went, that character and Ensign Gecko, we really like what those actors did in this session. I don't think we want to replace them. Let's leave them in the final mix. So they brought in their new loop group. They did all the film, but they left Ensign Gecko, and I don't know who the other character was, alone, and we made it to the cinematic release of the film. So it was just a lucky break. And what was wild about that, so it's been very economically, because you get residuals from this, every time it plays, you get a smaller and smaller checks, but you still get checks for the work. Years later, Disney contacted me and said, we're redoing a ride in Florida. I don't know what the original ride was, and we're going to turn it into a Lilo and Stitch ride. And the scene that Ensign Gecko was in was when Lilo blasts off the ship. That's the scene the ride is. So we want Ensign Gecko's voice on the ride. I did more lines for the game that was in Florida, and they let me improvise as well, than I actually did in the film. And they paid me a pretty handsome fee to buy me out in perpetuity for the game, a fair amount of money, so that they now own that, my voice, forever and ever, what I recorded for them on on that ride. So it ended up being economically an amazing thing and just fun to have, worked on a major Disney film, of course. It's just kind of cool, small role or not.
I agree. And before we dive into the Metal Gear Solid questions, because all three of us are big fans of the Metal Gear Solid series, Chris, you had a question for Mr. Stone. Hold on, you gotta unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Hold on.
Okay, better.
Yep.
All right, so Mr. Stone, what are some of your memories doing the Swan Princess franchise of Speed?
Well, that series goes on and on. It's incredible. The role I played was originally played by one of my favorite stand-up comics, Stephen Wright. And he played Speed the Turtle in the very first release of it. But he didn't want to continue. And they wanted to do a sequel. So in that instance, I did audition because they wanted a voice sound-alike for Stephen Wright. And I got the role and have been Speed the Turtle ever since. Hi, kitty. Yeah, meow. I know your food's. Give me 1 second. Your food's right here.
No problem, sir.
She's 19 and a half. So she gets a little confused at times. Sometimes I have to say, here, she's this far from the plate, but I have to point her at it and say, there, oh, there, okay. So, yes, your food's right here, honey. Right there, see? Or did you just want to talk to me? You can talk to me while I'm talking to the people. That's all right. Little mew in the background doesn't hurt. That's Queen Mimi. She used to be Mimi, but once she hit 17, I renamed her Queen Mimi because I thought at this age, she deserves to be royalty, that she's lived this. It's like being in your 90s, being 19 and a half. So Swan Princess, about every year and a half, I get a call and they say, we're back. And they're as surprised as anybody. They go, they want another one. They want another one. So on and on goes Speed the Turtle, who's a fun little character. And occasionally I do some other minor characters in some of the episodes, depending on how many they've written, what kind of an episode it is. And if they're in Britain, or I do a lot of accents. So if they're in other countries, maybe I'll do some minor characters, I might do a British character who's just like, helping the princess in getting a carriage or whatever. So he's not upper class, right? He's just, he's a workman or whatever. So, I'll add in little characters here and there, but the primary one is Speed the Turtle. Kind of goes slow and talks slow. And he's fun. And what's cute about him too is I'll meet volunteers at Kitty Bungalow, young girls, maybe, well, now, I say young girls to them older, but women in their 20s or 30s, and they'll say, oh, what kind of voiceover, explain a bit. And when I say Speed, they go, oh, because they all liked the princess. They go, I watched that when I was 4 years old. Oh, you're Speed the Turtle. So it makes me very popular with these young ladies who go, oh, it brings me back to my childhood or whatever. So it's kind of cute. And we still get to do them. I did one in the past year. I'm not sure if it's been released yet or it's going to be, but it seems like the series that goes on and on and on, which makes me happy to keep doing it.
And that's so cool. And I'll tell you something else too. Like, as a guy that has two turtles myself, I have a Russian tortoise and a Herman tortoise. I can say that that's awesome that you play a turtle. So that I sympathize with that.
My ex and I used to rescue desert tortoises. So in our backyard of our home, we had about 4 desert tortoises, and we would get the eggs and put them into like an incubator thing with heat lamps and whatever to do hatchlings. And we were licensed with the government because they're an endangered species, so we had to register it and everything. But yeah, we used to have tortoises back in the yard.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they're very cool watching these dinosaurs lumber around.
Aren't turtles just beautiful?
They're interesting. They're interesting critters, and the fact that they bury themselves, that they die, because we were worried about them drowning. When we do get torrential rains here, we let them dig their hole, then we pull them out, put them in boxes filled with leaves and dirt, and put them in the garage to hibernate. And they'd sleep all through. We put a couple little bits of food in, but they'd wake up a little bit, eat a bit, but then sleep for a couple of weeks. So yeah, interesting critters.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask too, like, and here's the question for the Metal Gear Solid fans, because all three of us are Metal Gear Solid fans. We love Psycho Mantis. It took me numerous tries to beat Psycho Mantis when I finally realized that you have to plug your controller in the second port in order to beat Psycho Mantis. Memories of working on the Metal Gear Solid series at Psycho Mantis and working with the cast, because you worked with names like Paul Lydon, who I've had on my show, Cam Clark, same thing, David Hayter, Christopher Randolph, just a whole all-star cast.
I did not work with them, unfortunately. Again, recorded separately.
Okay.
They, in later years after the original Psycho Mantises, apparently they kind of went to the production group. Oh yeah,
I got the Twin Snake. You were in this one, sir.
cool. I just got to. We just did a Metal Gear convention here in LA, and I saw all those people. Cam, I know from lots of other work from when I first got in LA. I directed Cam. Cam directed me, so I've known him a long time. The other folks, after those original shows, apparently they kind of petitioned the producers and said, we want to work together. We want to do this like an original animation series where we feed off each other. So they did get to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't. Psycho came in on his own, and I just worked with the director on Psycho, not with the cast. So some of the cast members I only met for the first time this summer at this Metal Gear convention at the LA
Comic-Con? Comic-Con?
No, this was a convention put on by Metal Gear fans, organized it. They did an amazing job of it. And when I found out about it, they were bringing in that crew because that's who they were used to. And I reached out and said, any interest in Psycho Mantis? And they went, oh my God, we didn't know where you were. Because I don't keep a big social media presence. So they invited me to come along, and I got to meet the cast and do signings all day long and sit on the, we had a answer questions to the fans. So it was a lot of fun. Busy day. But anyway, I did Psycho alone. So it's not so much interacting with the other group as it was interacting with the director. More than anything is my memories and finding the voice of Psycho Mantis, trying to decide what I was going to do. I had auditioned for him, and as I recall, in the original auditions, they were saying that he was kind of mysterious, that we didn't know quite where he was from. They didn't want his background completely understood. So I thought, well, maybe it'll be interesting if I not only do an interesting voice, but if I put a little bit of accent in there, but indeterminate. So I kind of put a little bit German with a little bit of Russian, kind of mix something in where when you listen to him, I was hoping the fans would go, well, where's he? Like in No Country for Old Men, that Anton Segar or Segro or whatever.
Anton
Sugar. Nobody quite knows where he was from or what his background is. And that helped made him even scarier, that you couldn't quite pin down what he was about, where he was from. So that was my goal that film. But it was also my idea for Psycho that I would do it that way. So he's a mix of different things. And that's what they liked in the audition process. And what I ended up doing in the sessions. And of course, I was directed, so some of the line reads were my own. Some of the line reads I was directed to change and alter slightly. You're always trusting the director, because I directed too. The director has the big picture of what the whole show is and the theme is. When you come in as an actor, you have to trust them to guide you into that. So you may have your idea and you may think, oh, this line, if I read it this way, it's going to be perfect. And the director will say, it's great, except unfortunately in Act 3, he's going to be killed by that guy. So he's not really a friend to him. And we have to build tension earlier than that. They have to guide you in your performance so that it feeds the storyline properly.
I agree. And
that's what happened with Psycho.
Chris, before you ask your next question, I got to ask too, Doug, and I want to know this. Did you record Psycho Mantis's voice while wearing a gas mask? Because Psycho Mantis wears a gas mask, and I was just wondering how they did that illusion, like it sounds like it's coming out of a gas mask, like talking.
They did that afterwards. I have done stuff where in other shows where I've actually put my hand over my mouth to replicate that. I've done stuff where I've spoken to a radio. I've done stuff where I did have a mask on because they wanted us to do it. But in the case of Psycho, to the best of my recollection, I don't believe I had a mask on while I was doing it. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe somebody else will come on and say, no, Doug was wearing a mask, but I don't believe I was. And I believe they did that in post-production where they did that effect of muting it somewhat to give that mask effect. As I recall, I wasn't wearing one.
Oh,
That's as I recall.
okay. Chris, your Metal Gear Solid question?
Well, actually, I was going to give this one over to Andy.
Go ahead. You got to unmute
Yeah.
yourself, Andy.
No, you're good. So check this out, right? With that being said, right, you did the lines and everything. What was your favorite line in in a scene? And if not, what was one way you could have made it better? You thought would have made it better.
Well, I don't know that I have a favorite line. The one that, again, it's, this is 24 years ago or so, and I almost had to be reminded by fans. I didn't know that he was big because I'm an older guy. I'm not on the internet as much. It wasn't until some people said to me, fans said, "Oh, Psycho Mantis." Oh my! I went, "Oh, you still know who he is?" And I went, "Oh, I'll look up Psycho Mantis. Top 10 list villains. Top 10 list. Oh wow! Oh cool. He still has a fan base. Hey, great. I didn't know." So I had to kind of go back and reintroduce myself to him. When I'm signing autographs, usually I just put, "I can read your mind." Psycho Mantis. So I just keep it short. I can read your mind. But I like that whole sequence of you like this game, don't you? You like that, don't you? You play this, don't you? You're a fan of that. That whole sequence was kind of fun. And I don't know if you guys know, but Psycho Mantis did car commercials. Are you aware of that?
No,
That's
I
new
didn't
to
know.
me.
I didn't know that.
You go onto YouTube and put Psycho Mantis car commercials. About 8 or 10 years ago, I was contacted by an agency in Florida. And they said, "You were the voice of Psycho Mantis." Yes, I was. "We'd like you to do some car commercials." And I thought, oh, well, they don't know what they're talking about. You have to license that. And I didn't realize they were like heavily professional, knew what they were doing. So I was kind of being like, "Guys, please, I can't just do that without their permission. And you have to get," and they went, "Actually, we talked to Koei and we have their permission. We just want to know if you want to do it." "Oh, so you've got it licensed and you got clearance for this?" "Yeah, I'm down for it." So what they did was they took the scene of Psycho standing on the table, that scene where "I can read your mind, I know what you want, Snake," and da-da-da, and they redubbed it, and I did several car commercials, and it was "I can read your mind, you want a Corvette Stingray with a gear shift, da-da-da," and just revoiced him doing these car things, and they redubbed it into that sequence, and they played them as commercials online. I guess streaming or whatever. I don't know. I'm not conversant with all the terms, but they did several car commercials. I did about 3, I think, that were for these cars, and they were also Metal Gear fans, which was a lot of fun because they were remote. We were doing it in a sound studio in LA, but they were directing me from Florida, and it turned out they were also Psycho fans and whatever. And they did these car commercials for several. They may have done it for Transformers, but they did it for several big franchises where they got characters that were their favorites to do these car commercials slightly revoiced. So that was just out of the blue. So just because it was out of the blue and fun, I actually tithed 10% of the money I made to Kitty Bungalow and donated it to Kitty Bungalow just because it was like something out of the blue and unexpected. But Psycho did he sold out and he did car commercials.
God bless you for that. And I definitely want to say some of my favorite lines that you did as Psycho Mantis, though. Like, I'm going to pay homage to you. And what I loved about what you did is that you were able to go falsetto, then deep voice, or sometimes even both. Like some lines, I'll give an example. It's like when you said, "Now let me read your mind. You have not saved often. You are either rather careful or you're very reckless." And then when you go, "Useless woman, I could read your mind."
Yeah. Sometimes you want to pay. I can't remember Psycho completely, but "Useless woman, I can read your mind. So you want to be able to pitch up here and come back down again too." I mean, you want to be able to put your voice in a lot of different places because that's required. In voice acting is to go a lot of different places. So sometimes within the same character, sometimes for different characters.
Absolutely. And another one I loved you did was like just because of how incredible you put the emotion is when you finally put your controller in the second port and then you're able to beat Psycho Mantis, you go, no, why couldn't I read his mind? And then I feel like, you know, like when you give a performance and you can actually feel when you're screaming, no, no.
Yeah. Well, again, that's when we were talking about earlier, but act again is I had to tell myself that Psycho Mantis, first off, is the hero of this whole Metal Gear Solid. I don't care about Snake and these other people. This is my story. As an actor, I have to do this. It's not an ego thing, but to play the role, I have to say Psycho Mantis is the most sympathetic character in the entire story. It's all about him. He's the one that has a grievance. He's the one that people should love and feel sympathetic for, as far as I'm concerned. So everything that happens to him that goes against him is heartbreaking for him, of course, because he's trying to accomplish something that's very important to him. So again, it's immersing yourself in the character where you love and believe him. You are him, and he is the hero, and he's what it's all about. So if something happens where he gets triumphant, he's going to celebrate it with all his might. If something bad happens, it's going to break his heart.
Absolutely.
You have to put your heart and emotion into it to make it real for the game player or listener or viewer or whatever the case may be.
I agree. And we have a couple more questions before we wrap up. One of them I had was, do you prefer voiceover work, directing, writing, or producing?
Well, not producing, not. I mean, I've done it, but it's such a headache. I'm too old to be in charge anymore. It was fun. They all present different challenges, and so they all have things that are fun about them. When I was producing, I'd look at a project and say, okay, I'm going to create a budget for this entire 26 episode cartoon series or anime. I'm going to work with a studio. I'm going to coordinate everything. It's very challenging, but exhausting and economically precarious because you're bidding on it. If you don't come in on the money, you're going to lose money, because I would guarantee my clients it's going to cost you X amount, and it will not cost a penny more. So I had to keep it on budget. I like directing because it's almost like conducting an orchestra. You know the whole series, the whole episode, and like I was saying about the actors, sometimes they want to deliver a line a certain way, and you have to say, I love what you did. I love to read, but it doesn't work with the story. What I need you here is to have just a little bit of resentment in your voice, not just happiness, but just a tinge of resentment, because in the third act, it's going to turn out you don't like that guy. So that's fun and challenging to kind of conduct the vocal orchestra. The most fun to be like a kid and just play is voice acting. When I go in and somebody else is producing, somebody else is directing, somebody else is worrying about all that other stuff, and I just get to come in and go, who am I? Well, you're Uncle Bob, and you're going to do this scene and that. Great. And I'm Uncle Bob, and I do this scene and that scene, and they go, great, we love what you did. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye. All walking to the car going, well, that was great. I got to play for 2 hours. I got to be Uncle Bob in this show. I feel like a kid who got to play even at my age. That was fun. So at this age, when I don't have the energy for all the other responsibilities, just going back to my beginnings of just being an actor again and not doing all that other stuff, it suits me just fine. I don't want the other responsibility. Fun while I did it, but it's for 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, not for an older, I don't think, not for me anyway, at my age. We won't disclose my age, but I'm over 39. I will admit to that.
Bless you, sir. Chris, your next question.
Memories working on Mask, playing the many characters, including Matt Trekker, or Bruce Sato, and Bruno Shepard.
Yeah, and Hondo McLean and Dusty Hayes, and I ended up with 8 characters. I started with 3 when I auditioned in Canada. I think it was Bruce, Hondo, and Matt, I believe, were the original 3. Came down here, and they kind of did some recasting, and I ended up with Dusty, and I'm not sure who else originally, but I think I went up to 4 or 5, and then it kept expanding until it was 8 characters. That was a lot of fun, and it got me to LA. It was a fun thing to do. It was my first. I had done some original animation in Canada, but not to that extent. And fortunately, all the rest of the cast were nice people. It's really important who you work with. And I'm still friends with some of the cast members. We lost Brendan McCain very sadly almost 2 years ago now, who played Miles Mayhem and whatever, and he was nothing like Miles, nicest man. But I'm still in touch with cast members of the series. So obviously we bonded and became friends while doing it. It was a great experience, a lot of fun, and I loved the challenge. They had asked me while I was doing it, do you want to record each character separately? And then we'll mix it, you know, so you do all your Matt lines, all your Dusty, all your Bruce. And I said, no, I want to speak to my own characters. I want to go back and forth. I just need a few beats in between. So you change, to help change your voice, sometimes you change your physical position. So to do Bruce Sato, I would hunch my shoulders forward and try to be as humble and soft-spoken as I could. When you're doing somebody like Hondo McLean, I would try to be big because he was way bigger than me, and change my vocal placement and my vocal stance, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, it was a lot of challenge. Seeing a lot of hand there on the screen. It was
the camera.
yeah. Thank you for getting it back out. It's kind of distracting to see the hand stuff. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of challenge to play the different characters, and a great experience for me to get me kind of rolling in LA. So a lot of fun memories of Mask, and it's amazing that we still have fan clubs that exist around the world for Mask after almost, what is it, 85 that we 85, 86 that we did that series. So we're coming up on the 40th anniversary soon.
That's incredible. And Andy, your next question?
Yeah, so I was curious, like, what kind of teachings or important lessons have you learned through the like the entire career? You know, right? From like, what could you give out to people that are trying to get into voice acting?
If they're trying to get into voiceover, well, unfortunately, it's a whole different world than it was when I started out. So I'm not as aware of what's out there online to help them, etc. Because I'm kind of, at this point, people just know me and I'll get calls, auditions are hired. But I do know that as an actor, as I was saying earlier, it's not just making funny voices, it's acting, it's inhabiting the characters. So I recommend to anybody who wants to get into voiceover, wherever you're living, you're eventually going to have to get to New York or LA probably, though there is remote work available. But to actually make a living at it, which is very difficult, you really have to be in the center, and that's LA or New York are really the centers for it. There is a contingency in Texas that works, but I don't know that they support themselves totally from voiceover, those actors. A lot of them end up coming to LA. But I would say immerse yourself in acting. Go do amateur theater. Go do anything you can do. Get on a cast and crew of a film. Get a job as a gopher in a studio, in a sound studio, and get to meet the actors and get to hear what they're doing. Drop in on vocal sessions and listen to what the actors are doing and learn. I've had instances where new actors in LA were brought into sessions I was doing, and I'm sure that it's with other veteran voice actors, and they'll say, listen to how they work. Watch how they professionally handle themselves, how they conduct themselves in studio, and learn that as well. It's a business, and you have to be able to immediately grasp what a character's essence is and perform. The director might only give you 2 minutes of background on your character, and then you go. So there's a lot of challenges, and you have to learn a lot about it, and about it as a business as well. I often recommend people to take Bob Bergen's voiceover classes or Steve Bloom's voiceover classes, because these are two guys who are both enormously talented, and they understand the business of voice acting. So Bob Bergen does Porky Pig and a lot of very well-known Warner Brother characters, and he understands the business of voiceover. So when I've sent young actors to him to be taught, they're not only taught about voice work and how to create vocal characters, but they're taught how to get an agent, how to put together a voice demo tape, etc., or not tape, but CD or MP3 or whatever.
Mhm.
It's the business of voiceover as well. So learn from the best. If you're going to invest in classes, don't take classes with somebody locally. Don't waste your money. You want to take classes with a pro, a working pro who's current in the business and knows what the business needs and what the new vocal styles are, how to put together a vocal demo, etc., etc. Spend your money wisely. Work with pros.
Inspirational words, sir. And I had a question too, like related to Metal Gear. What do you think of the impact Metal Gear Solid has caused on younger generation fans 25 years after its initial release?
Well, I can't speak to the impact it's had on other people. You know, I can only speak for myself, but I do know, like with Mask, again, going to this convention I went to, I think it was in July, it was jam-packed with fans. And there was fans from as far away as Canada who had flown down specifically for the convention. So obviously it's had a huge impact and has a huge fan base, which is just incredible. And inspiring to us as actors. It means we did a good job. And obviously the series I mean, it's not just the actors, the series creators, the writers, everybody associated with it obviously did a good job. We're just one part of it. But it's wonderful to know. When I was a young kid growing up, I was no different than anybody else. I was watching different things, but I would watch Warner Brothers cartoons and Mel Blanc and all these, you know, characters that were inspiring to me, both TV shows and animation. And as I went on and grew up, I still adore Mel Blanc. I'm still inspired by his performances. So to think that we're in that kind of boat for younger fans, I don't mean like Mel Blanc because he was a god, but just to think that our work that we were just doing because it was fun, it was a great business to be in, not thinking it would ever live on 20, 30, 40 years later, it's incredible. It's incredible to me to think, wow, work I did in 1985, work I did in 1999 and 2000 for Metal Gear, 20 years on, people are still talking about it, listening to it, want to get autographs, buy the games, the toys, and whatever, still play the game and whatever. It just, I feel very honored that I got to be a part of something that has that kind of life. Just feel fortunate that my work lives on. It's really cool. It's like a very extra great bonus to having been in the business.
Well, that's why I said you're a legend because you know, like everyone's gonna remember Psycho Mantis, everyone's gonna remember Mask, like all these, like Naruto, Tenchi, the series Tenchi into Tokyo will always be my favorite of the Tenchi series. And you mentioned like Mel Blanc's. To me, like if you would ask me the four pillars of voice acting, I would say Mel Blanc's, Dawes Butler, Don Masick, and June Foray.
I got to work with June Foray twice, which was really cool. She was much older, but she was she's like this tall, you know, she was tiny. She was about, I don't think she was 5 feet. I think she was about 4'9", because I'm shrinking. You shrink as you get older. But I got to work with her twice. And the last time was a few years before she passed, and she must have been about 92. And she wasn't feeling well. And as soon as they started and the mic was on, boom, she delivered. She delivered a performance. It was like, man, we all got our picture taken with her. Everybody was so excited. We're going June Foray. So there's this picture, don't have it to show to you, of this teeny little lady sitting in a chair and all these guys with big smiles on their face. You know, we're all like, we're in a room with June Foray. We were so jazzed to be with her. She was sweet and could still knock it out of the park in her 90s. So it was very inspirational. I hope that at 92, I'm able to still stand in front of a microphone and deliver a performance the way she could. She was great.
Bless you both. And you're actually the fourth voice actor I've had that's also a director too. I've had Sue Blue on the show. I've had Pat Fraley on the show. Of course, yourself. And you just mentioned Cam Clark, I believe, directed too, right?
Yeah. Cam.
Well, let's not also forget Adam Small, because he was also a voice actor and director.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Cam does directing, or used to do directing. I don't know if he still does. And also did looping, a lot of looping work, a lot of TV shows and films that he supplied voices for as well. So I knew we mixed together a lot in the looping world as well as the world of animation and anime.
Okay. And Chris, before you ask your final question, because we're gonna wrap up very, very soon, we have a couple of like final questions. I have to say this one of these questions I have is one of my final questions too, and I was waiting a long time to ask this to you, Mr. Stone, but it's a running gag we have on the show here, and we ask every guest star we have on this. But whenever I'm not on a huge like military, almost like diet where I would fast like until dinner time, I am an absolute foodie. And I know you worked on a lot of production companies, so I just was curious to know which production company had the best catering scene, and what was your favorite meal in catering?
Oh, geez. That I'm always grateful when they do have food. I know I got in trouble on Metal Gear about food. I was starving during one of the sessions, and as I was walking out, there was this table there with food on it, like bran muffins, whatever. I thought, oh, thank God. And I went to get one, and I was told by the people sitting there, oh, that's for the producers or whatever. Well, I already had my hand on like a bagel, and I went, and I a little peeved at me, but I was so hungry after doing Psycho Mantis for like 2 hours straight. Man, you burn up all this energy. But I'll tell you a place. Magnitude 8 Studios is now closed. The late Kevin Seymour used to direct there and did a lot of very well-known anime and some games. Cowboy Bebop and a lot of things were recorded, and those folks are still friends. The studio is now closed. They always had a great layout of food. They did, because I'm not a big foodie, but you'd walk in there and go, oh my God, fruit and bagels and meats and and a soda machine that was free and et cetera, et cetera. So that was a place. Les Claypool and Mary Claypool ran that studio, and as I say, the late Kevin Seymour used to direct there. They had a great food layout always. So kudos to them.
Very cool. And it's making me hungry right now.
Yeah,
Especially when you mentioned bagels. I love bagels.
I don't buy them myself because I'm trying to maintain my figure. As you get older, obviously you put on weight more, and I have arthritis and I can't do much physically, so I'm careful what I eat. But at a studio, if there's bagel and cream cheese, well, come on. I'm at the studio, I'm working. I mean, I'm supposed to have one, right?
It's okay to have a cheat day. I mean, we all do.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, any final comment or question for Mr. Stone?
Yeah, Mr. Stone. So, when you're doing an anime, is it also that when you direct, what kind of like work do you do when you direct? Because I didn't know that there was like much in terms of like working on a translation when it's the translation, and you yourself are saying the lines, but you also like have some feedback in like how the lines are said, or how does it go usually?
Well, you have a translation, sometimes a horrible one, sometimes a decent one, but it has to be rewritten for the lip sync. You have to adapt it for the lip sync. And it all depends on the series. So I used to do script adaptations too, but then if I was directing, sometimes I'd hire people because I couldn't do it all. A lot depended on the series and the producers. Some of them said we want it as close to the original as possible. Others said, we want you to kind of Americanize it. So go ahead, like I worked on one called Samurai Pizza Cats, where
That one.
okay, well, I wrote the second one, and then it was voiced up in Canada, but I wrote one that they kind of took. I was flattered that they said that's going to be the one that we showed the other writers as to how we want this written, because I just put a lot of comedy in it and Americanized it. So it wasn't true to the original at all. It was just Americanized. So it depends on the series. My job as a director, I may be supervising the script people or maybe not. I liked it better when I was, because then I could control what I got and I'd write a script Bible. In other words, tell them what the themes of the show were, a description of every character, so that the scripts coming from 12 different writers would hold together in a series, and it wouldn't sound like they were like all over the place. They've got to be thematically through line for the whole series. And then my job in studio, once I reviewed those scripts and made sure they're thematically correct, the lip sync is reasonable, et cetera, is to then, sometimes with the producer there, sometimes not, get the actors to deliver a good performance, to deliver the voice that they originally auditioned for and keep it through line, not go off voice, keep that voice throughout, and deliver the performance, and the lip sync had to be right. When we started, there was no such thing as Pro Tools. You couldn't move the lines. We were doing it to tape. So you had to hit the lip sync right on the money, or else we had to keep redoing it until you hit the lip sync on the money, because we couldn't move anything. We couldn't put a little pause between or whatever else. Pro Tools enabled us to do that. So you're supervising a lot of things when you're directing, a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. You have to please the producers. You have to keep it on time and on budget. You have to get a performance from the actors. You have to get the right lip sync, and you have to keep the through line of the story, each story that you're doing. So you have to be ultra familiar with every episode and where it's going and what the theme of that episode is, so that, because your actors don't know, they're trusting you. They're in anime, they're just coming in alone, doing just their performance. So you're the one that, again, has to conduct the orchestra and know where it's leading. They're not even in there with the person they're speaking to, but you know what the performance was, and maybe you've already recorded it and you can play it. But if you haven't recorded the person they're speaking to, you just have to know in your head, and maybe you'll even read in the lines for them. So they go to say something, and you'll read in the line how you know you want the other actor to say it, so that they have something to feed off. So you're juggling a lot of balls at one time. It's a big responsibility.
Well, you didn't work for 4Kids, did you?
Pardon me?
You didn't do any dubs for 4Kids, did you?
Dubs for
4Kids.
4Kids.
Yeah, the studio that did the 4Kids animes. Some of them
4Kids
include like
animation.
One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh.
I don't remember 4-piece.
Oh, it's
Well, One Piece. But I'm talking about 4Kids, the studio.
Yeah, I don't know 4Kids in studio.
Okay, good. They were horrible. Trust me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't even think I've ever heard of them, and I don't know if they were in LA, but I don't recall ever working for them.
Andy, your final comment for Mr. Stone?
Honestly, it's just like a big pleasure. Like, I never thought I'd fucking, meet you, Doug Stone. It's crazy. I mean, like, when I was growing up, my grandfather, he put me on Metal Gear, and I didn't know anything. But when I saw, Psycho Mantis blowing my mind, talking about everything, like, oh, what games you like and everything like that, it was just, it like, it kept me engaged, and it like gave me appreciation for a lot of the people that do like voice acting or just acting in general, because I can have a conversation with you like this, but if I was to give it more of a dramatic feeling to it, it changes the like whole feeling, the whole story, the whole vibe of everything going on. So when I saw that, when I was, man, how old was that, like maybe 8 or 9 years old, watching that, it's just like, man, like,
That's when things really hit you, I think, when you're that young like that. That's like for me in my cartoon experience watching the Warner Brothers and stuff, and just go, I'm falling into this. This is amazing. So yeah, it's and that's fun for me. Like I've done other stuff that's more sweet or whatever, but I love entertaining. I love the fact that kids are entertained by some of the work that I do. Really, I get a buzz off that. I really like that, because I feel like I'm part of a storytelling to kids and giving them entertainment to watch. And that, I don't know, I get kind of jazzed. But one of the things I volunteered at when I first moved to LA was story reading at schools, after hour programs, reading stories to kids whose parents were working late, so they couldn't go home right away. They're just stuck at school. So to get them an appreciation of stories and books and just hearing stories, I would read to them, and try to get them to read the books as well. So anyway, that is something I'm jazzed about, is storytelling for kids.
yeah, and that's it's like, like I said, that's what's beautiful, because even like now when I watch just like a regular movie or just like anime, right? For example, the Resident Evil Infinite Darkness is like, it gave me that appreciation, as in like, seeing how just vocally it impacts you, right? Or like you're saying, when you're reading with the kids, it did the same thing, and like, shit.
Yeah,
I'm
it
trying
has
to,
an impact. entertainment has an impact on people.
Yeah, and it, like I said, like it gives that appreciation, like overall, just in that spectrum of art, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But
One of the final questions I have a final question and comment for you, sir. The final question I have for you is, what's next for Doug Stone? Now, this is the part of the show, Mr. Stone, where it's an open forum, pretty much open mic. You could say anything, you could talk about anything you want. I am passing the proverbial microphone to you. The floor is yours, Mr. Stone.
well, of course, my romance with Charlize Theron, I'm hoping is going to take off. And I'm going to be vacationing in Hawaii with her in our mansion. Unfortunately, it's only in the imagination stage at this point, but I am sending her psychic, vibes through my Mantis powers. I'm hoping to move her computer controller, and then she'll go, "Wait, Mantis is trying to get in touch with me," but it may not happen. Hi, Kitty, you came back.
Aw,
She finished her food. I'm gonna have to feed her in a second.
no worries.
She snacks all through the day. This is the older cat. Well, what's next is just my volunteer work is very important to me, as I mentioned, this fundraiser. So I hope to continue being a board member at Kitty Bungalow as long as I can and doing charitable work. I just hope to keep on working. Again, I don't aspire to write, direct, or produce anymore, but I still have fun acting, voice acting. So I mean, I got a booking on Friday. I can't talk about it because we signed non-disclosure agreements. But there's still bookings coming in, every week or two, a couple, 4 or 5 a month, and that makes me happy. And that's all just right off into the sunset. Still doing animal benefit. Yes, I know, meow. Doing animal benefit stuff and continuing hopefully to be thought of and continue acting. I do collect my pension already and whatever, but that doesn't mean I can't keep going. So that's all, just a quiet life with friends and family, going for lunches and seeing my loved ones and having coffee with people I like and meals, simple pleasures at this age. It's really just simple pleasures. Helping out the kitties. I go to the animal shelter. Sometimes I bottle feed newborn kittens. I get a kick out of that, or sit with kittens who have disabilities and get them on my lap and give them comfort, and all that kind of stuff is the kind of thing that gives me pleasure at my more advanced age. I don't need parties and booze, and I'm not interested in drugs and anything else. Just simple pleasures with friends, animals, and still getting in front of a microphone. That's about it.
Bless your heart, sir. And my final comment to you is going to be the following. Like, it's going to be a lot. I'm going to say thank you for not only an amazing interview, like an incredible one, which I promise to send you a copy of as soon as it's done and uploaded. Promise. I want to thank you for those memories you gave me as a kid, playing Metal Gear Solid, watching Tenchi to Tokyo, watching Naruto, watching Mask. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that you don't have the powers like Mantis does, but you have this incredible gift. This incredible gift where you could take a 30-something-year-old fan and bring him way down here and make him feel like that 8-year-old again playing Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation. It's just, and also I just want to say also too, like, you played this incredible villain off screen, but I could say honestly, like, getting to know you and like doing this interview, I could say if Saints could walk this greenest pasteurized earth, that would explain you, sir.
I'm an atheist, but I have what a mantra is? Kind of a thing you repeat to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine is, we must do the work of the angels, even though there aren't any, because I am an atheist. But I still feel that if human beings can imagine angels, if we can imagine benevolent creatures who do kind and compassionate works, that means we're capable of doing them. We don't have to wait for some power to do it. We can do it ourselves by just finding our hearts and acting from there. So that's all. I'm just trying to be a good guy and live as clean a life as possible and work out of compassion and whatnot for our little friends, our little creature friends, and that's all. Just try to live a good life.
Absolutely, sir. And one final thing before we conclude, and I feel like you deserve this. I waited a long time to do this, and that is thank you, Doug Stone. Thank you,
Thank you, Doug Stone.
Thank you,
Thank
Doug
you,
Stone.
Doug Stone.
Thank you so much again for an amazing interview, sir. You have an awesome night, and I promise to send this interview right away to you.
Cool. Excellent. We'll get it up on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you. You have an awesome night, sir. And thanks again, Chris and Andy.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Give us the opportunity, man.